The Great Hall of Nexus Prime fell silent as Counselor Vexithara stepped forward. Her blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and her 4 eyes showed the pride that had made her famous across the galaxy. She looked at the empty seats, where humans used to sit, and she smiled. 6 months, she said, her voice echoing in the massive chamber. 6 months since the humans ran away like scared children, and look how peaceful everything has become. The other council members shifted in their seats. Some nodded, but others looked worried. High Chancellor Morden, the ancient whale-like being who led the council, raised one of his massive fins. Peace, yes, Morden said slowly. But at what cost? Our shipping routes are becoming dangerous. Pirates attack our merchant ships every day now. Vexithara waved her hand dismissively. Small problems. We can handle pirates without the humans and their warships. We managed fine before they came to our galaxy. Counselor Zephyr, whose crystal body sparkled like diamonds, made a sound like breaking glass. Did we? I have been checking our records. The humans have been here for only 200 years, but in that time, pirate attacks dropped by 90%. Because they scared everyone with their weapons. Vexithara shot back. Always building bigger guns, always ready to fight. They made the galaxy a dangerous place just by being in it. Far away from the council chamber, Captain Lee Damon stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars through the window. The Aegis Dawn was moving fast through empty space, heading toward the edge of the galaxy where no one ever went. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. "Captain," said his communications officer, a young woman named Kim Yura, "we're getting messages from 17 different council worlds. They want to talk." "Let them talk to empty space," Damon replied. "We have our orders." Dr. Park Ji-young walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She looked tired, like she had been working for days without sleep. "The last evacuation ship just jumped to hyperspace," she reported. "Colony World Kepler 442 is now completely empty." Damon nodded. "How many is that?" 347 human colonies, all evacuated. Every human research station, every military base, every trading post, all gone. Park sat down heavily in a chair. "Kang Woojin's plan is working perfectly. In 3 more days, there won't be a single human left in council space." The name Kang Woojin made everyone on the bridge go quiet. 6 months ago, he had been their ambassador to the Galactic Council. He had spent 5 years trying to make the other species understand what was coming. 5 years of warnings that no one wanted to hear. Damon remembered that last day in the council chamber. Woojin had stood before all the assembled aliens, his face calm but his eyes full of pain. The humans had discovered something terrible in the deep space beyond the galaxy. Something that was coming their way. Something that had destroyed other galaxies before. "You call us aggressive," Woojin had said to the council. "You say we build too many weapons, that we prepare for wars that don't exist. But we have seen the evidence. We know what's coming. In less than 2 years, this galaxy will face an enemy that makes our worst nightmares look like children's stories." Vexithara had laughed at him. "More human fear-mongering," she had said. "You see enemies everywhere because that's all you know how to do. Fight and kill and destroy." Other council members had agreed with her. The humans were too violent, too ready for war. They had strange ideas about threats that didn't exist. Better to let them leave if they wanted to go. "We offer our knowledge," Woojin had continued, his voice getting louder. "We offer our protection. We offer to stand between you and the darkness that comes. But you would rather believe we are the danger." "Because you are," Vexithara had replied. "The galaxy was peaceful before you came. It will be peaceful again when you leave." Woojin had looked around the chamber one last time. Every human representative stood up with him. "Then we withdraw," he had said simply. "We take our ships, our people, our knowledge, and we go. When the real enemy comes, remember this moment. Remember that you chose pride over survival." They had walked out together, and the council chamber had erupted in cheers. Now 6 months later, Park Ji-young looked at the data on her pad and frowned. "Captain, I'm seeing some strange readings from our long-range sensors. What kind of strange? Damon asked. Energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. Big ones. And they're moving. Damon felt his stomach drop. It was starting. Back in the council chamber, the debate continued. Morden was reading from a report, his ancient voice heavy with concern. Our trade routes through the Andorra sector have been closed for 2 weeks. Pirate fleets are getting bigger and bolder. They're using weapons we've never seen before. Stolen human technology, suggested another counselor. Perhaps, Morden said. But that raises another question. How much of our galaxy's security depended on human protection? How much of our technology came from human innovation? Vexithara's skin turned a darker blue, a sign of anger in her species. You sound like you want them back. I want to understand what we've lost, Morden replied. Our communication networks are failing. Our defense grids need repairs that only human engineers knew how to do. Our exploration ships are afraid to venture into deep space because the humans aren't there to rescue them anymore. We can learn, Vexthara insisted. We can do these things ourselves. Can we? Asked Zephyr. I've been studying the human databases they left behind. Do you know what I found? For the past 50 years, humans have been upgrading and maintaining systems across the entire galaxy. Systems we didn't even know they were working on. Life, support on our space stations, navigation computers on our ships, defense satellites around our worlds. All of it had human improvements that we never asked for. The chamber grew quiet as the counselors realized what this meant. They were protecting us, Morden said slowly. All this time while we complained about their weapons and their aggression, they were quietly making sure we stayed safe. Impossible, Vexithara said, but her voice was less certain now. Is it? Zephyr pulled up a holographic display. Look at this data. Pirate attacks before humans arrived. 8,000 per year. After humans joined the council, 800 per year. Mysterious ship disappearances in deep space, down 95%. Unexplained equipment failures on outer rim colonies, almost zero. The truth was becoming clear and it was uncomfortable. The humans hadn't just been members of the galactic community. They had been its protectors, working behind the scenes to keep everyone safe. And now they were gone. On the Aegis, dawn alarms began to sound. Dr. Park looked up from her instruments, her face pale. Captain, she said urgently, those energy readings I mentioned, they're not just moving, they're accelerating, and they're heading straight for the outer rim colonies. Captain Damon closed his eyes. Ambassador Wu Jin had been right about everything. The real enemy was coming, and the galaxy had no idea what was about to hit them. How long? He asked. At current speed? 6 months until they reached the first inhabited systems. Damon opened his eyes and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient and hungry was coming home. And the galaxy that had rejected humanity's protection was about to learn why humans had been so afraid. 3 months had passed since the first energy readings appeared at the galaxy's edge, and everything was falling apart. Admiral Yoon Sun-hee stood in the command center of the human fleet's hidden base, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. The base was built inside a dead moon, far from any council territory. No one knew it existed except for humans, and that was exactly how they wanted it. Admiral, called engineer Kim Tae-hyun from his station. We're getting distress calls from the Vega colonies. Pirate fleets are hitting them with coordinated attacks. They're asking for help. Sun-hai shook her head sadly. They made their choice. We can't break cover yet. The hardest part of their plan was watching the galaxy suffer while they prepared for something much worse. But Wu Jin had been clear in his orders. No human intervention until the real threat showed itself. The council had to understand what they had lost. On the far side of the galaxy, Councilor Zephyr stood in the ruins of what used to be the Altaran shipping hub. Bodies of her crystal-like people lay scattered among the wreckage of destroyed buildings. The pirates had hit fast and hard, taking everything valuable and leaving destruction behind. How many dead? She asked the rescue team leader. 2,000. Confirmed another 500 missing, came the grim reply. They took our entire supply of processed metals and destroyed our manufacturing centers. Zephyr felt something she had never experienced before. Fear. Her people had lived in peace for centuries. They had never needed to worry about violence because someone else had always protected them. Now that protection was gone, she activated her communication device and sent a message to Nexus Prime. This is Counselor Zephyr. I need to speak with High Chancellor Morden immediately. The holographic image of the great whale being appeared, looking older and more tired than ever. Another attack, he asked. The worst yet. Morden, we have to admit the truth. Without human protection, we're helpless. Morden's massive eyes closed slowly. I know, but Vexthara still believes we can handle this ourselves. She's convinced the other counselors to reject any attempt to contact the humans. Then she's a fool who will get us all killed. Far away, Captain Shin Minwoo piloted his reconnaissance ship through the empty space where the Kepler system used to be. His instruments showed nothing but cosmic dust and radiation, 3 entire planets gone without a trace. This doesn't look like a pirate attack, said his co-pilot, Lieutenant Han Jisu. No, Minwoo agreed, studying the readings. Pirates steal things. They don't completely destroy solar systems. He took detailed scans and transmitted them back to Admiral Sunhee. Whatever did this, it consumed everything. Planets, moons, even. The star itself is smaller than it should be. The reports reached the human fleet within hours. Dr. Song Naeon, their chief scientist, analyzed the data with growing alarm. She had spent years studying ancient ruins on dead worlds, looking for clues about what had happened to previous galactic civilizations. Now she was seeing it happen in real time. Admiral, she said, bursting into Sun Hai's office. The Kepler system isn't the first. We've lost contact with 17 outer rim systems in the past month. I think they're all gone. Sun Hai looked at the star charts on her wall. Red marks showed where systems had gone silent. They formed a pattern moving steadily toward the galaxy's heart. How long before they reached the main council worlds? She asked. At this rate? 8 months, maybe less. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was in chaos. Emergency sessions ran day and night as reports of system-wide disappearances reached them. Vexthara still insisted these were just pirate attacks, but fewer counselors believed her, each day. We need to face reality, said Counselor Veltar, whose people lived near the outer rim. Half of my colonies have gone completely silent. No distress calls, no evacuation signals, nothing, they're just gone. Communication failures, Vexthara said stubbornly. Equipment breakdowns. The humans probably sabotaged our systems before they left. High Chancellor Mordoon had heard enough. He rose to his full height, making the chamber shake with his movement. Enough! Vexthara, your pride is blinding you to the truth. Our outer territories are being destroyed by something we don't understand, and you're still blaming the humans. They're the only ones with weapons powerful enough to destroy entire systems, she replied. Are they? Morden pulled up a holographic display showing the missing systems. Look at this pattern. Look at how systematic it is. This isn't human warfare. This is something else entirely. In the abandoned human research station on Titan Base, automated systems continued their work. Dr. Park Ji-young had left detailed files before the evacuation, and now those files were transmitting their findings to anyone willing to listen. The data painted a terrifying picture. Ancient ruins on dozens of worlds told the same story. Advanced civilizations that had thrived for thousands of years, suddenly wiped out completely. No survivors, no refugees, no trace except empty cities and scattered bones. The pattern repeats. Every 50,000 years, Park's recorded voice explained to the empty station. Something comes from outside our galaxy, something that consumes entire worlds, harvesting their energy and resources before moving on. We found evidence of at least 12 previous galactic civilizations, all destroyed the same way. The recording continued. We tried to warn the council, but they wouldn't listen. They thought we were making it up to justify our military buildup. They couldn't understand that everything we did, every weapon we built, every defense we prepared, was to protect them from this threat. On her command ship, Admiral Sunhee received a priority message from Captain Bei Jiwan, one of their best scouts. Her ship had been watching the galaxy's edge, tracking the approaching threat. "Admiral, you need to see this." Jiwan's voice crackled through the communication system. "I'm sending you live sensor data from Grid 77 Alpha." The images that appeared on Sunhee's screen made her blood freeze. Massive shapes moved through the darkness between stars, each one larger than a moon. They flowed like liquid shadow, but sensor readings showed they were solid, made of materials that absorbed all energy directed at them. "How many?" Sunhee asked, quietly. "I count at least 50 major vessels, but there are smaller ones everywhere. Thousands of them. And Admiral, they're not ships." "What do you mean?" "They're alive. These things are living creatures, and they're heading straight for the outer rim." The truth was finally becoming clear. The humans hadn't left because they were afraid of the Council's disapproval. They had left to prepare for a war that no one else could see coming. Back on Nexus Prime, Counselor Zephyr was studying the data from Dr. Park's abandoned research. The more she read, the more she understood how blind they had all been. "We have to contact them," she said to Mordun during a private meeting. "We have to ask the humans to come back." "Vexathara will never allow it," Mordun replied. "She's convinced too many counselors that asking for human help would be admitting defeat." "Then we'll be defeated anyway," Zephyr said. "Look at these readings. Whatever is coming isn't something we can negotiate with or bribe or reason with. It's a force of nature, and the humans are the only ones who were preparing to fight it, as..." If summoned by their words, alarms began ringing throughout Nexus Prime. Emergency broadcasts flooded all communication channels. "This is the Outer Rim Monitoring Station," a panicked voice announced. "We're detecting massive energy signatures approaching our position. Unknown vessels, biological in nature, approaching at sublight speed. They're huge. Each one is the size of a small planet." The transmission cut to static. Zephyr and Mordun looked at each other in horror. The enemy had arrived at the galaxy's edge, and they were completely unprepared. "We have to try to contact the humans," Zephyr said urgently. "Even if Vexathara objects, even if it costs us our positions on the Council, this is bigger than politics." Mordun nodded slowly. "Do it. Send a message on all human frequencies. Tell them we were wrong. Tell them we need their help." But as Zephyr prepared to send the message, she wondered if it was already too late. The humans had been gone for 9 months, and the enemy had finally arrived. The galaxy's last hope was scattered to the stars, and no one knew if they would answer the call for help. Fleet Admiral Cho Hanbin stood before the largest gathering of human ships in their history. Hundreds of vessels floated in the darkness between galaxies, their lights creating a small constellation in the void. These were not the ships the Council had known. These were warships built in secret, armed with weapons that had never been tested in battle. "Today we return," Hanbin announced to his fleet commanders. "Not as the humans who left 9 months ago, but as something new, something necessary." In the conference room of his flagship, the Eternal Guardian, representatives from every human colony listened to his words. Dr. Song Naeon stood beside him, her years of research finally bearing terrible fruit. "Show them what we found," Hanbin said. Naeon activated the holographic display, showing the ruins she had studied on dozens of dead worlds. "We call them the Devourers," she began. "They're older than our galaxy itself. Living ships that feed on the energy of entire solar systems." Captain Bei Jiwan, who had been watching the enemy's approach, added her report. "They've consumed 12 outer rim systems in the past week. Each time they leave nothing behind. No debris, no radiation, nothing. They absorb everything." "How is that possible?" asked one of the colony representatives. "They're not machines," Naeon explained. "They're biological entities that evolved to consume stellar energy. Think of them as cosmic parasites that feed on entire galaxies before moving on to the next one." The room fell silent as the true scope of the threat became clear. These weren't invaders who wanted territory or resources. They were a force of nature that would consume everything in their path. There's more, Neon continued. I found a survivor on the dead world of Kepler-99, an ancient being called Korthek. He's the last member of the civilization that ruled this galaxy before us. The hologram shifted to show a creature that looked like living stone, with eyes that held the weight of 50,000 years. Korthek's voice was like grinding mountains when he spoke. Your species, humans. You are the first to prepare, the ancient being said in the recording. Others always believe they are safe. They think the devourers are myths, legends, stories told to frighten children. But I have seen them come before. I watched my people die as these creatures ate our worlds. How did you survive? Neon's voice asked in the recording. I hid. I ran. I lived in shame while my civilization was consumed. For 50,000 years I have waited in the ruins of my world, hoping someone would come who might succeed where we failed. The recording continued. The devourers cannot be reasoned with. They feel no emotion, show no mercy. They exist only to feed. But they can be fought. They can be killed. Your people discovered weapons that might work. Weapons my people never. And back in the present, Admiral Hanbin addressed his commanders. Korthek has agreed to help us. His knowledge of devourer tactics could save millions of lives. What about the Council? Asked Captain Lim Kyung-ho, commander of the experimental warship Prometheus. Are we just going to let them be destroyed? They made their choice, Hanbin replied grimly. But we won't abandon them entirely. When the time is right, we'll offer our help. But only if they accept that the old ways are finished. Light years away on Nexus Prime, chaos ruled the council chambers. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy as the Devourer advance accelerated. Entire sectors had gone dark, their billions of inhabitants simply vanishing. Counselor Zephyr stood before her colleagues, her crystalline form dim with exhaustion. We've tried everything, she said. Our military fleets can't even scratch their hull plating. Our most powerful weapons just bounce off them. High Chancellor Morden looked like he had aged decades in the past few days. What about the human message? Did they respond to our call for help? Nothing, Zephyr replied. Either they can't hear us or they're choosing not to answer. Vexithara, whose blue skin had turned almost gray with stress, finally spoke the words she had been avoiding for months. Maybe we were wrong about them. The admission hung in the air like a confession. For the first time, the proud Altarian was acknowledging that her people might have made a terrible mistake. I've been reading their research files, she continued quietly. The humans knew this was coming 50 years ago. Everything they did, their military buildup, their exploration of deep space, their constant preparation for war, it was all to prepare for this moment. And we drove them away, Mordun said heavily. In the space around the doomed world of Vega Prime, 3 council fleets had gathered to make a final stand. Admiral Kethvar commanded the combined forces from his flagship, knowing that this would likely be his last battle. All ships maintain formation, he ordered as the Devourer entities approached. The enemy moved like a living tide of darkness, flowing between the stars without any regard for the laws of physics. Sir, his tactical officer reported, energy readings are off the charts. These things are generating power equivalent to a small star. Fire all weapons, Kethvar commanded. The council fleets opened fire with everything they had. Particle beams, plasma cannons, nuclear missiles, exotic energy weapons, all of it struck the lead Devourer entity and simply vanished, absorbed, into its dark surface without causing any visible damage. The creature's response was swift and terrible. Tendrils of pure energy lashed out from its bulk, striking the council ships with devastating force. Hulls buckled and exploded, crews were vaporized instantly, and entire vessels simply ceased to exist. In less than 10 minutes, 3 fleets were reduced to scattered debris. Admiral Kethvar's last transmission was a desperate warning. They're heading for the core worlds, nothing can stop them. May the stars forgive us for our pride. The message reached human space just as Admiral Hanbin was finalizing his battle plans. The council fleets had lasted even less time than his worst estimates predicted. It's time, he announced to his commanders. Begin Operation Sanctuary. Across human space, ships that had been hidden for months began to emerge from their concealment. These were not the vessels the Council remembered. They were sleek, predatory things built with technology that pushed the boundaries of known science. Captain Bei Jiwan took her ship Shadow's Edge toward the advancing Devourers, her mission to test their new weapons. The ship itself was a work of art, its hull designed to absorb and redirect energy rather than simply resist it. Target acquired, her weapons officer reported. Single Devourer entity, medium class. Fire the Lancer beam, Jiwan ordered. 2. Weapon that emerged from her ship was unlike anything in the galaxy's arsenals. It was a focused beam of pure matter energy conversion, designed specifically to disrupt the biological processes that kept the Devourers alive. The beam struck the creature and it recoiled for the first time since the invasion began. Dark fluid poured from a wound in its hull flesh and its movement became erratic. It's working, Jiwan breathed. We can hurt them. But the victory was short-lived. The wounded Devourer sent out a signal, and within minutes, dozens of its companions were converging on Jiwan's position. All ships retreat to Rally Point 7, Admiral Hanbin ordered over the communications network. We've learned what we needed to know. As the human ships vanished into hyperspace, they left behind a galaxy in panic. The Council worlds were frantically evacuating their populations, but there was nowhere to run. The Devourers were everywhere, consuming world after world with unstoppable hunger. On Nexus Prime, Counselor Zephyr received a single message on an encrypted human frequency. It was brief and to the point. We are coming. Prepare your people for evacuation. The old galaxy is ending. If you want to survive what comes next, you will accept our terms. Admiral Cho Hanbin, Human Defense Force. Zephyr looked at the message for a long time before showing it to Morden. The ancient chancellor read it twice before speaking. What terms do you think they mean? He asked. Complete restructuring of galactic government, Zephyr replied. Humans in charge of military. Defense. The end of the Council as we know it. Can we accept that? Zephyr looked out at the stars where entire solar systems were dying every day. Can we afford not to? The message had been clear. Humanity was returning, but they would not be the same humans who had left. They were coming back as warriors, as protectors, as the only force in the galaxy capable of standing against the cosmic horror that was consuming everything in its path. The question was whether the galaxy they returned to would still exist when they arrived. The evacuation of Nexus Prime was a sight no one had ever imagined they would see. Millions of beings from hundreds of different species crowded into transport ships, fleeing the galactic capital as the Devourers approached. The great space station, that had been the center of civilization for 2,000 years, was being abandoned. General Oh Suman coordinated the evacuation from her command ship, the Mercy's Hand. She had never thought she would be rescuing the same people who had driven humanity away, but orders were orders. Transport Group 7 is loaded and ready for jump, reported her aide, Lieutenant Park Young-ho. That's the last of the civilian population from the outer rings. Good, Suman replied, watching the endless stream of ships fleeing toward the temporary safe zones humanity had established. What about the Council members? Most have agreed to evacuation. Counselor Vexithara is still refusing to leave. Suman sighed. Even now, with death approaching, some people couldn't let go of their pride. High Chancellor Morden was one of the last to board an evacuation ship. The ancient being looked back at Nexus Prime with sadness in his massive eyes. 2,000 years of history, he said to Counselor Zephyr, who was helping him onto the transport, all of it ending in a few days. History doesn't end, Zephyr replied gently. It just changes. If the humans can save us, we'll build something new. If they want to save us, Morden corrected, we treated them terribly. We called them warmongers, and drove them away. Why should they risk their lives for us now? The answer came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Kang Woojin appeared on the transport's communication screen, his face older and harder than when he had last addressed the Council, because that's what humans do. he said simply. We protect people even when those people hate us for it. Even when they don't deserve it. Morden stared at the screen in shock. Ambassador? I thought you were just a diplomat. Wu Jin smiled grimly. I was never just a diplomat, Chancellor. I was the advanced scout for our military forces. My job was to try to convince the galaxy to work with us willingly. When that failed, my job became planning for the war we knew was coming. You were a spy, Zephyr said, though there was no anger in her voice. I was a soldier trying to save lives, Wu Jin corrected. And now I'm a general trying to win a war that will determine whether our galaxy survives or dies. On the bridge of the human flagship Eternal Guardian, Admiral Cho Hanbin studied the tactical displays showing the Devourer advance. The creatures had consumed half the galaxy's outer rim and were moving steadily toward the core worlds. At their current pace, they would reach the last inhabited systems within weeks. Status report, he ordered. Captain Lim Kyung-ho stepped forward. All evacuation zones are operational. We've saved about 60% of the council populations. The rest, he didn't need to finish. The rest were dead or beyond rescue. What about our fleet strength? 800 combat vessels fully armed with new weapon systems. Another 200 support ships. It's the largest human fleet in history, but I'm not sure it's enough. Dr. Song Naeon approached with a datapad in her hands. Admiral, I've completed my analysis of Korthek's information about Devourer tactics. There's something you need to know. Go ahead. The creatures we're fighting aren't just individual entities. They're all connected, like parts of a single organism. Korthek calls it the collective mind. If we can disrupt that connection, the entire swarm might become vulnerable. How do we do that? We need to reach their primary node. The largest Devourer entity serves as the central nervous system for the entire group. It's usually protected at the center of their formation. Admiral Hanbin studied the enemy positions on his tactical display. The Devourers had arranged themselves in a vast spiral formation as they moved through the galaxy, with the largest creature, easily the size of Earth's moon, at the very center. That thing is surrounded by thousands of smaller Devourers, he observed. Getting close to it would be suicide. Maybe, Naeon agreed. But it's our only chance. If we can hit the primary node with our most powerful weapons, we might be able to sever the connections between all the Devourers. Without coordination, they would become just individual animals instead of a unified swarm. Meanwhile, in the outer system of Altara Prime, the Devourers had arrived. Vexithara stood in the council chamber of her homeworld, watching through the windows as the dark shapes blotted out the stars. She had refused evacuation, choosing to remain with her people to the end. Counselor, her aide said urgently, there's still time to reach the evacuation ships. No, Vexthara replied calmly. I led our people into this disaster. The least I can do is face the consequences with them. The first Devourer entity descended toward Altara Prime like a living shadow. As it approached the planet's surface, tendrils of energy began flowing from the world itself into the creature's body. Buildings crumbled as their molecular bonds were dissolved. Oceans boiled away as their water was converted to pure energy. But, just as the planet seemed doomed, new shapes appeared in the sky. Human warships, moving faster than anything the Council had ever built, swept down from orbital positions that had been empty moments before. Captain An Su-young led the attack. In her ship Defiant Hope, all units concentrate fire on the primary feeding apparatus, she ordered. Hit them before they can establish full connection with the planet. The human weapons were like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of trying to punch through, the Devourer's energy-absorbing hulls, they attacked the creature's biological functions directly. Beams of converted matter disrupted their feeding processes, while specialized missiles injected toxins designed to poison their energy conversion systems. For the first time since the invasion began, the Devourers retreated. The creature attacking, Altara Prime released its grip on the planet and pulled back, dark fluid leaking from dozens of wounds. Vexithara stared in amazement as human ships landed near her city. Soldiers in advanced armor emerged, led by a figure she recognized from council recordings. President Ryu Sulgi, Vexithara said as the human leader approached. I didn't expect to see you here. Counselor Vexithara, Ryu replied formally. By order of Admiral Hanbin, you and your surviving people are being evacuated to safe zones. Please gather whatever you can carry and prepare to leave. Why? Vexithara asked. After everything we did to your people, why are you saving us? Ryu's expression softened slightly. Because someone has to survive this war to rebuild what comes after, and because that's what humans do, we save people even when they don't deserve it. The evacuation of Altara Prime was completed just as more devourers arrived. The human fleet pulled back, but they had proved something important. The creatures could be hurt, and they could be driven off. Back on the Eternal Guardian, Admiral Hanbin received reports from battle groups across the galaxy. His forces were fighting a running battle, hitting the devourers wherever they could and then retreating before the enemy could respond in force. We're buying time, reported General O. Suman, but we can't keep this up forever. Every day they consume more worlds. Soon there won't be anything left to save. Then we don't wait, Hanbin decided. Send word to all fleet commanders. We're implementing Operation Final Strike. Sir, Captain Lim protested. The fleet isn't ready for a direct assault on the primary node. We need more time to prepare. Time we don't have, Hanbin replied. Dr. Nayon, how long do you estimate before the Devourers reach the core worlds? 2 weeks, maybe less. And how long do you need to finalize the weapon modifications for the assault? At least a month. Hanbin closed his eyes, weighing impossible choices. Either they attacked now with incomplete preparations, or they waited until their weapon systems were perfect but the galaxy was dead. We attack in 72 hours, he announced. Ready or not, we're going to take the fight to their primary node. As word of the planned assault spread through the human fleet, soldiers and officers alike began preparing for what might be their final battle. They had spent years preparing for this moment, but no amount of preparation could truly ready them for what lay ahead. In the evacuation camps, millions of refugees from hundreds of species waited to learn their fate. They had lost their homes, their governments, and their way of life. All they had left was hope that the humans they had once rejected would succeed where all their own forces had failed. The galaxy's future now rested in the hands of the species they had called too aggressive, too violent, too ready for war. Soon they would learn whether humanity's preparation and sacrifice would be enough to save them all. The final battle began at the heart of the galaxy, where the massive devourer swarm had gathered around the ancient star that had shone for billions of years. The primary node, a creature so large it dwarfed entire moons, floated at the center of the formation, feeding on the star's energy while thousands of smaller devourers created a protective barrier around it. Admiral Kang Woo-jin stood on the bridge of the Eternal Guardian, no longer the diplomatic ambassador the Council had known. His uniform bore the insignia of the Human Defense Force, and his eyes held the weight of humanity's greatest gamble. All fleet groups, report status, he ordered. Alpha Group in position, came Captain An Soo-young's voice from the Defiant Hope. Ready to begin the breakthrough assault? Beta Group ready, reported Captain Lim Kyung-ho from the Prometheus. Weapons systems charged and locked on target. Gamma Group standing by, confirmed General Oh Suman from her assault carrier. Dr. Choi. Hunwoo, the scientist who had developed their ultimate weapon, made final adjustments to the targeting systems. Admiral, the quantum disruptor is ready. But I have to remind you, if this fails, we won't get another chance. Wu Jin nodded grimly. The weapon they were about to use was based on technology that humanity had developed in secret for 50 years. It was designed to sever the quantum connections that linked the Devourer collective mind, but using it would reveal capabilities that would change how the galaxy saw humanity forever. Begin the assault, Wu Jin ordered. The human fleet moved like a single organism, each ship group executing its part of a plan that had been rehearsed countless times. Alpha Group struck first, their ships diving toward the outer ring of Devourer, defenders. Their weapons had evolved far beyond what the galaxy thought possible. Energy beams that could cut through the creatures' hulls, missiles that released clouds of biotoxic particles, and shields that actually grew stronger when struck. By devourer energy, Captain An Soo-young led her squadrons through the enemy formation, her ship dancing between tentacles of pure energy that could have destroyed a council battlecruiser. Beta Group, we've opened a corridor. Move now. Captain Lim's heavy assault ships charged through the gap, their massive weapons tearing into the devourer defenders. But for every creature they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The enemy was vast beyond imagination. "Sir," reported Lim's tactical officer, "enemy reinforcements are moving to close our breakthrough. We're getting surrounded." "Hold position," Wu Jin ordered from the flagship. "Gamma Group, begin your approach." General Oh Soo-min's ships were different from the others. They carried no traditional weapons at all. Instead, they held something far more precious and dangerous: human volunteers who had undergone modifications that pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be human. These soldiers had been enhanced with technology derived from studying the devourers themselves. Their bodies could survive in the vacuum of space. Their minds could process information at superhuman speeds, and their weapons were integrated into their very cells. Deploying enhanced units, Soo-min reported as her ships released hundreds of modified humans into space. They moved like living missiles, each one heading for a specific target on the primary node. But the Prime Devourer, the massive creature at the center of the swarm, was not defenseless. As the enhanced humans approached, it released a psychic scream that could be felt across light years. The sound was pure hunger, pure hatred for all life that dared to resist consumption. Several of the enhanced soldiers faltered, their minds overwhelmed by the creature's mental attack. But others pressed on, their modified brains protected by technology that no one in the galaxy had imagined possible. Lieutenant Colonel Bae Minho was among the first to reach the primary node's surface. His enhanced vision could see the quantum energy patterns that connected this creature to every other devourer in the galaxy. Those connections were what he and his team had to sever. "Target identified," he reported through his neural link. Beginning, quantum disruptor placement. The work was deadly. The primary node's surface was covered in defensive tendrils that tried to grab and consume any intruder. Several of Minho's team were lost before they could complete their mission, absorbed into the creature's biomass and converted to energy. But humanity had prepared for this sacrifice. Every enhanced soldier knew they might not survive, and they had accepted that price. The galaxy's survival was worth any cost. "Charges placed," Minho reported as his team finished installing the quantum disruptors. "Ready for detonation." "All units, withdraw to minimum safe distance," Admiral Wu Jin ordered. The human fleet pulled back, their mission complete, but their fate still uncertain. Dr. Choi monitored the weapon from the flagship's science station. "Quantum disruptors are synchronized and ready. Admiral, once I activate this, there's no going back. The energy release will be visible from anywhere in the galaxy." "Do it," Wu Jin commanded. The quantum disruptor activated in silence, but its effects were immediate and devastating. The connections between the devourer collective mind snapped like breaking cables, sending waves of energy through space that made reality itself ripple. The primary node convulsed, its massive form writhing in what might have been pain or confusion. Around it, thousands of smaller devourers suddenly stopped their coordinated movements, becoming individual creatures without purpose or direction. "It's working," Dr. Choi breathed. "The collective mind is fragmenting." But the victory came at a terrible cost. The quantum disruptor's energy had to come from somewhere, and that somewhere was the enhanced human soldiers who had planted the devices. Their modified bodies served as living batteries, their life force converted to pure energy to power the weapon. Lieutenant Colonel Minho and his entire team vanished in a burst of light, their sacrifice powering the weapon that would save the galaxy. Across space, the effect spread from devourer to devourer. Without the collective mind to guide them, the creatures became confused and disoriented. Some began attacking each other, others simply drifted aimlessly through space, no longer able to coordinate their feeding. The primary node itself was dying, its massive form breaking apart as the quantum disruptor continued its work. Dark fluid poured from countless wounds, and its energy tentacles writhed weakly before going still. "Enemy fleet is breaking apart," reported Captain Lim from the Prometheus. "The survivors are scattering in all directions." Admiral Wu Jin watched the destruction of the enemy force with mixed emotions. They had won, but the cost had been enormous. Hundreds of human ships were damaged or destroyed. Thousands of enhanced soldiers had given their lives, and the galaxy they had saved would never be the same. "All ships begin search and rescue operations," he ordered, "and send a message to the evacuation camps. Tell them it's over." 6 months later, Ambassador Kang Wu-jin stood before a very different galactic council. The meeting was held on New Haven, a human-built station that served as the temporary galactic capital while Nexus Prime was rebuilt. The council itself had been restructured completely. Gone were the days when each species could simply vote on matters they didn't understand. Now the council was led by a joint defense committee, with humanity holding permanent authority over military matters. High Chancellor Moradin, now serving as civilian administrator, addressed the assembly. 6 months ago, our galaxy faced extinction. We survived only because one species had the wisdom to prepare for a threat the rest of us refused to acknowledge. Wu Jin stepped forward, wearing his diplomatic robes once again. But everyone in the chamber knew that beneath those robes was a warrior who had helped save them all. "The threat is gone for now," he announced, "but it will return. Perhaps not in our lifetimes, perhaps not for another 50,000 years, but it will return. The Devourers are not the only cosmic threat out there. Our galaxy exists in a universe full of dangers that most of you can't even imagine." Counselor Zephyr, her crystal form still bearing scars from the evacuation of her homeworld, spoke for the assembled representatives. "What do you need from us?" "What we've always needed," Wu Jin replied. "Trust, resources, and the understanding that sometimes the galaxy needs protectors who are willing to do terrible things to keep everyone safe." He gestured to a holographic display showing the enhanced human soldiers who had died in the final battle. "These people gave up their humanity to save you. They allowed themselves to be modified into living weapons because that's what the situation required. That's the price of protection. Sometimes the protectors have to become something other than what they were." The chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had saved the galaxy, but in doing so, they had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. "We accept your leadership in military matters," Counselor Vexathera said quietly. The proud Altarian had been humbled by the recent events, her species' homeworld saved only by human intervention. "But we ask that you remember what you're protecting. Don't let the burden of being our guardians turn you into something we should fear." Wu Jin smiled sadly. "We've been having that debate among ourselves for 50 years. How much of our humanity can we sacrifice to protect humanity? How far should we go to keep the galaxy safe? I don't have easy answers.